The clerk that will be operating this evening on behalf of the city staff is Mr. Chris Jackson, who we'll introduce shortly. And so we'll start off, Mr. Jackson, if you could walk us through any late items, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have 5 pieces of correspondence to attach, 2 related to Development Variance Permit 224, 2 related to the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, and 1 related to the Port Theatre, 11A.
Okay, thank you. So with those noted, if we could ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And motion to adopt the minutes, section A, 4A and B together, please. So moved. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move straight down into administration. And the first thing is 7A. The purpose is to have council appoint an approving officer. And the staff recommendation is that by motion, council appoint Mr. Dale Lindsay as the subdivision approving officer.
Your Worship, I so move that council appoint Mr. Dale Lindsay as the subdivision approving officer.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? A great appointment, and I think Mr. Dale Lindsay, has done an outstanding job for the city, and we're looking forward to his continued good work on our behalf. Pardon the expression of the name change, but moving into 8A, Corporate Services Appointment to the Regional District of Nanaimo Board 2014. The purpose to obtain council direction regarding the appointment of Regional District of Nanaimo Board Directors and establish a voting assignment for each director for 2014. And the staff recommendation shows, and the one I support as well, is that council 1, appoint 7 directors from the Regional District of Nanaimo Board, 2, assign 5 votes to each of the 6 directors and 4 votes to 1 director, and 3, appoint and establish the schedule for primary and secondary alternate directors. And I'd like to recommend, and if somebody would like to move it as part of the motion, that the same directors continue on for 2014, and that would be Councillor Beswick, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Kipp, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Anderson, Councillor Brennan.
Sorry? May I move the I'd move that we appoint the following directors to the Regional District Board: Mayor Rattan, Councillor Beswick, Councillor Brennan, Councillor Kipp, Councillor Anderson, Councillor Greaves, and Councillor Johnstone, and 2, assign 5 votes to each of the following 6 directors: Mayor Rattan, Councillor Beswick, Councillor Brennan, Councillor Kipp, Councillor Anderson, Councillor Greaves, and 3, assign 4 votes to Councillor Johnstone, and 4, establish the schedule for primary and secondary alternate directors as follows, starting with Councillor McKay in January, and alternate director Councillor Patchy.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Councillor Brennan?
No, I was going to move the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Kipp.
No, Your Worship, I appreciate that. I just want to know if any of the alternates want to take on the 2,000 pages for tomorrow night's meeting. It's literally 2,000 pages tomorrow night, so.
Seeing none. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into 8B, Development Variance Permit DVP 223 at 210 Woodhaven Drive. Purpose to seek council authorization to vary the maximum allowable height of a perimeter wall. And at this point, it's requested that council hear in wishing to speak with respect to DVP 223. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to matters related to that property at 210 Woodhaven Drive? Okay, a few people would like to come forward to the microphone, please. Welcome, sir.
Fellow council members, my name is Brian McCullough, and I'm here tonight to address Development Permit Variance 223. I live 5 houses over from the lot where the proposed residence is to be built, and I'm here with a couple of other neighbors as well. I'm also a member on the Long Lake Heights Planning Committee, so we initially approved the plans for this residence. As one of the subdivision council members who approved the plans, I was a little surprised that we didn't get a copy of the variance notice. So the building department of the City of Nanaimo knows that we approve the plans. And then if there's a variance, it would seem that that would be normal course of action, that we would be sent a copy of the variance to see if it works within our council as well. So I've just found out about it a couple hours ago when one of the residents called me. I've taken a look at it, and quite frankly, I was floored at the amount of variance. So we're talking about a home that we approved with all the city setbacks, city height, which 27.9, I believe it is, feet. When I look at the what's been proposed on one side, which will face the residence, one right beside, which is a bed and breakfast, and then one right next door, we're talking about 53 feet. So it's going to be a monolith of a house, and as you look down the street, it'll be a monolith sitting there. It'll probably block the light from the residence beside it. And quite frankly, looking across the lake, I just think it's going to be a mammoth structure. So I'm opposed to it. I've sat down with one of my council members. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to the rest of the planning committee for Long Lake Heights, although I'm sure that they would be surprised that the type of variance, not a foot or two, but 21 feet or 23 feet in excess is being asked for. So the two council members that I've talked to are opposed to it. I would think at the least it would be best revisited elevations for the adjoining owners to see how this house is actually going to sit within the community and what it's going to look like from across the lake. And that's
Okay, we have a question for you, actually several. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. McCullough, very much. This is the first time that I've heard of a Long Lake Council. Could you explain a little bit
okay,
how
sure.
that is put together?
So Long Lake Heights is a bare land strata, and so within that bare land strata, we have a council, strata council. Within that council, we have a planning committee which approves any plans that for houses that are built within the development. We work with the city. The city knows that we approve those plans, and when they're approved, they look to us, or any renovations, they look to us and ask us if we've approved those.
Okay, thank you for that follow-up, if I may, Your Worship. To staff, is there any reason then, as Mr. McCullough stated, he was not advised, or his council was not advised of any forthcoming variances that should he have been?
Your Worship, with respect to notification, we follow the bylaw, which requires to be notified basically immediate or adjacent properties. I think it's certainly reasonable to think that in this situation, Strata Council would be advised, but they were not. We followed the bylaw and just just notified those properties immediately adjacent to the subject property.
And one final question to Mr. McCullough. Is your objection to the variances on all three sides of what is proposed, or?
I think it's excessive all the way around. I believe one side, the proposed height is 53.6 feet. At another side, it's 33, which is fairly close to what the city bylaw is. But then on the other side, it's 51.6 feet. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at the normal home is 27.9. So if you took a house that's 27.9 feet and then stuck a home that's 53 feet beside it, you can kind of see the gravity of the structure people are looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Patchy touched on a couple of the subjects that I'd like to address with you. As it relates to the significance of the variance, is that where your issues lie from what I'm understanding, is the significance of the variance.
I think the significance of the variance plus this is a very difficult lot to build on. So if you look at the information that's in front of you as far as, which shows the layout of the lot, it comes off of Summit. It's a panhandled entrance in, so it pushes it, not sure how many feet, but it pushes it almost, well, about a lot in, and then it comes out. So it's coming basically over top of the houses below. So yeah, it's a very imposing type of lot, very difficult to build on. Probably, you know, in hindsight, when somebody developed the subdivision, it's probably something that shouldn't have been factored in, but that was years ago. And, it's, you know,
Thank you. And
it's there.
thank you, and Your Worship, if I may. So you also noted form and character. So I think the term you used was a monolith of a structure. Will that compromise the area?
Oh, hugely.
And when I say compromise, will it be a sun and a shade issue for neighboring properties? Will there be view corridors that are influenced? So beyond the size and the scope and the significance of the variances, will other neighbors be impacted negatively?
Councillor Bestwick, I'm not too sure about the views. It may be the residences beside it on the street up above where its entrance is may have views impacted, but I think they may be impacted just at a 27, like at a normal height. It's definitely going to impact the neighbor, which is in the two neighbors in front. Definitely, it'll block out the light. And it's, if you look down the road, down the street, it's going to be one huge structure that's going to be out of form and character with the rest of the residences.
Thank you. And just my final question to the delegation, Your Worship. If these variances were not approved, and you mentioned yourself that this is an extremely difficult lot to build on, would it eliminate the potential to build on this lot if these variants to some degree?
Oh, no, you can still build on the lot. You would have to build up further up the lot, and you wouldn't come down as far. But it's a lot that's changed hands many times, so to some degree, I guess it does probably limit what you can build.
Thank you very much.
The size of the lot, or the size of the home would have to fit the building envelope, where you could put it in a location where you have the normal city heights.
And Ms. McCullough, there's some other questions too, but I'm just going to ask you mentioned the size of an approximate family home in town and suggested this one, the proposed one here, would be almost twice that size. My question is, what about the immediately adjacent neighbors within 3 or 4 houses on either side? What size houses would they be in comparison to this one? Are they the same size, smaller, or very much smaller than?
Well, they'd be a lot smaller.
The immediate ones.
Yeah, the home in front of the lot. And when I say in front, this lot comes down one road and goes all the way down to the lake. Okay. So at the end of the street, that lot comes down. There's a house here. It would be. I think it's about 3,000 square feet. It's a story and a half, or a little over, probably 3,500 square feet, but a story and a half, and I believe it adheres to the 27 or maybe 26 foot height. The house next to that is a smaller home. I believe it's about 2,100 square feet, and it's a ground entry with the main upstairs. So again, about 26, 27 feet.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. McCullough. I'm really having trouble grasping with with how this Bearland strata works. You know, I can easily grasp you know, a strata building, you know, you own to the outside of the inside walls and so on and so forth. But this one here, it's got the look of a parent parcel, hence your governance, but with the individual lots. So how is it that the Strata Council would have jurisdiction. Can you help me with that? And I know you're in the business that you should
So,
be able to.
you know, Bearland Strata is a subdivision that a developer puts in. The development owns the roads. Lots are basically freehold, but you also have an interest in the common areas of the land. So, because it's Bearland Strata, you also have a strata council. The common form is that within a Bearland Strata, you have a strata council, much like you would in a building, and anything that's to be built within the development has to be approved by that council. Any exterior renovations, roofs, sheds, expansions to the residents have to be approved. So what happens is Mr. Testini buys the lot, brings in the plans, we sit down, we go over them. If it adheres to everything, city code, city setbacks, height, etc., and there's the proper parking setbacks that we look for off the road, then we approve it, and we don't pay as much attention to the, you know, telling somebody how to build and how to make it look pretty. But as long as it conforms to those standards. So I guess our issue would be then, once we do that, and we do work with Mr. Topliff in the city, and he'll tell people if they're going to do a renovation, go and get Long Lake Heights Strata Council to approve this, and then it's approved through the city as well. So we'd appreciate being able to have, you know, on a variance, if somebody's asked for that, for it to come to us, then as a Strata Council, we'd go take a look at the lot again and see if it's going to impact the immediate neighbors.
Follow up, Your Worship. Yeah. So has the council approved a building for this owner on this property?
Yes.
So what you're seeing is something quite different than what you approved? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
Thank you, yes. Mr. McCullough, a few questions have been asked. I appreciate your input. This has been an extremely interesting Bearland Strata to build on from its entire life. I think it's a really great subdivision and area. I mean, it's got some, I've designed a bunch of unique houses personally. This lot's extremely hard to build on. I think it would almost be opposite to what you're saying. To make this fit, you'd have to build it down in that little slump and come down steep to the driveway, and it would maybe make the height. Is your biggest concern, though, the fact that one of it is you weren't notified? And can we remedy that through staff so that if there's a variance in that area, we'll contact some of the stratas? So if I can shift through the staff, is that capable, or is there so many stratas that we would start to run into so much work with major variance?
Your Worship, I think it's a reasonable expectation, as Mr. Lindsay said, that we would let the strata know when there's a variance application or any kind of application in the strata. It definitely will slow down the municipal processes, but I think if that's what the Council of the Stratas want, then we should do it.
Okay, thank you very much. And you admit it's a tough lot to build on, but if you had maybe seen it. So if one more question goes to the last question from one of my peers, this is a totally different plan than what you've seen?
No, I haven't seen the plan that's been submitted. We've got a plan in our office that was submitted to us for approval, so I don't know if that's changed. My understanding is it's the height has changed, and when you look at it from the neighbor's point of view, it really starts to become something that it's a huge wall, you know, that they're sitting looking at.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, Mr. McCullough, when this change was first brought to your attention, or to that of the strata title group, did they contact the builder? Was there any conversation with him, Mr. Testini, I believe it is, about the changes, and did he?
You know, I don't know about it. Some of the owners, but the two people just in front, to the right of the lot.
Just take a seat, sir. We'll call you up when you have a chance.
To the right of the lot have been in Mexico for the last 3 months or so. So they just got home and called me up and said, you know, what's going on here? And I hadn't heard of it. The person right beside this lot, I think, got back today from holidays. You know, he's shaking his head yes. So So I just found out today, they just found out today, and they both just got back from holidays.
I guess I'm just wondering, is there any kind of a possible resolution or kind of a compromise that you can see that the builder may want to work with and the city could possibly look at and your group could also discuss, or is this?
I think there's always compromises. I mean, I think there's, I think what everybody would like to see is that it blends in. So, it's definitely not that anybody doesn't want to see Mr. Testini build there. It's, that's his lot and he should be able to build there. But as long as it, fits within the neighborhood and doesn't, overpower everything else to the point where they're overshadowed by it.
If I may, just to staff, is maybe if you think, Mrs. Swaby, is there, let me get you here, an opportunity that we could get together, we the city, together with the strata and also the builder to see if there is any common grounds? Is it something we should look at referring back, or is this something that is black and white and we have to go one way or the other tonight?
Your Worship, I have a letter here that came with the application from the strata, as Mr. McCullough is talking about, that approves the plans, which then staff takes as the approval and processes the development variance permit application. So it is a difficult situation, and I definitely I would listen to the applicant if he's in the audience, or she, and listen to their point of view. At that point, if there's still confusion, then by all means, I think you should refer it back, and we'll work with the owner and the strata on a compromise.
Okay, thank you. There's still some more. Councillor Kipp, you're finished, are you? Yes. And Councillor Brennan.
Well, after, first of all, I guess I'd move to receive the delegation.
Okay, unless there's any other questions from the speakers for the delegation. Mr. Grady, Councillor Grady, you don't have anything for that, and Councillor Johnstone?
No, mine is to the staff.
Okay. So, and you don't? Second. Okay, move second. We hear the delegate. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you, sir.
Okay,
and this will be
and
considered.
again, our thrust isn't to stop the house from being built at all. It's just to have it work within the community.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's as far as I'll go on that, and listen to the proponent, and then perhaps if it looks like it's necessary and it's starting to look like it is, a referral back to staff for consultation with the neighborhood and the strata council. And the
So
proponent.
is the applicant here Mr. Testini or a representative for him? Hi.
Hello, I'm Mike Testini, the owner of the lot.
Okay.
The house, as Brian said, is what I submitted to my council, Strata Council, is the same plans that the city got. So there were no major changes in height or any of those measurements. The house is a 3-story house. It falls in within the proper height of the total house, and also the height of the wall at the back of the house is 30 feet 4 inches. It's about 4 inches over the allowable city measurements. The issue we have is, because it's a difficult lot to build on, it slopes back and to the left. So the back corner of the house, even though it's a 3-story house, just like Brian's, or just like almost all of the ones on Woodhaven are all 3 stories, very similar, that I need a 22-foot post on that corner of the house. The city told me when they measure the face of a wall, I'm reading as the face of a wall is an actual wall, but I've got 30 feet of wall and then 22 feet of post. So that's why we need the variance of 50-odd feet, because I have to hold the house up. There's no other way to hold that house up. And that's exactly what they're saying. So, the Mammoth House comment, it's the same as all of them on that street. A lot of them on that street, not all of them. They're 3-story houses, and because of those sloped lots, we have to have 3 stories, or else we'd have a 40-foot post. But that post would still be there. So the Strata Council also knows the variance, because I've been in communication with them on many times on this lot. They've approved the plans. They knew that I have to go to variance. And they knew that that post was the issue. We've had that discussion. They didn't have an issue. That's why they gave me the letter of approval. Most with all the other houses, as Brian was saying, it is different, or it's a massive house. The house is 3 stories and it's about 4,300 square feet. With that bottom floor mostly just for structure. So it's 1,600 on the main floor, and then the second floor and that third floor bumps it up to 4,300. So it's either put a floor down there or build your foundation walls 20 feet. So that third floor pushes it to that 4,300 mark. The issue about blocking views and blocking light, that's basically an opinion. The house is situated far enough back where there's the park on one side, so I've got no neighbors on the right-hand side, the lake to the back. To the left, where Brian lives, they're about 70 feet below me. They're quite down there. Everybody knows there was a lot there, and that someday somebody will build on that lot. And the height of the house from the front of the house, it looks like a rancher. We're trying to go a level entry and then 2 stories down. So we're not building a massive house from all views. It's just from the back, it's going to be 3 stories. But the end, like on Woodhaven, they're almost all 3 stories, and then go down the road. So if there's any questions?
Well, there may be, Councillor Brennan, do you have anything for the delegation or for staff?
I don't know.
Okay, Councillor Greaves, for the delegation or for staff?
Yeah, I might as well get my 2 cents in here. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I was under the understanding that this basically had to be built this way because of the sloping of the land and so on and so forth, and I somewhat agree with the proponent here that it seems to me there are many houses along Woodhaven especially that are 3 stories and look exactly like this. I understand the reason for the variances because, I mean, you basically have to build it this way, the way I look at it. And I was quite surprised that a development permit or a development variance permit would go through the Strata Council, because I don't question the expertise, but I question the expertise.
Yeah, great.
I would think this type of thing, which can be quite difficult, would go through our department, our staff.
Right.
So I think your point, Your Worship, about referring this might be the possibility. I think Councillor Brennan was thinking the same thing. So I'll conclude on that.
Okay, thank you. If I can, and to staff now, and maybe to the delegation, Mr. Testini, if there was a referral back to staff to look at this, do you see any possible options or settlements or concessions, if you want? Maybe that's...
We've been doing this for 6 months.
Okay.
We've run our 12th revision of plans. Right around the 4th, we completely scrapped it and started over. We've even gone to cantilevering part of the house at the back. So that post that I'm talking about is recessed 12 feet in. So from the back of the house, the post is 12 feet behind the edge to shorten that distance. So we've done a lot to accommodate that lot. We're adding probably $40,000 in to cantilever that. We feel it's necessary. Nobody said we had to, but for me to make it according to all the other houses and to make it look right and fit in, we've decided to do that.
Okay, and just a quick question to staff, and then we'll go back to Councillor Johnson. To this, Mr. Swaby, is this correct that this has been approved in its present form by staff, or has there been modifications, or is this particular plan that Mr. Testini is now asking for variances on, is this exactly what's been already approved by the city?
Your Worship, we have a letter confirming a plan number that's approved. I don't dispute them, but I can't confirm it until I have a look with the exact file, unless Mr. Lindsay can find it, whether it's the exact plans that were approved. But certainly the letter we have is emphatic that the approve the plans as presented. which puts the applicant in a very difficult position if council were to refer it back, given that his legal rights now with the Strata Council appear pretty clear.
Okay. Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Most of my questions have been clarified. Thank you, Mr. Testini.
Good, thank you.
But I was just looking at the notes from staff, and it appears that it is not exceeding the maximum height, the slope that's built on the west side that's built into the slope of the hill. So it looks pretty clear to me that this
It
is
is,
the...
yeah. Within the
Your Worship,
boundaries.
could I just clarify one thing further? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
The letter, I just read the bottom part. It does set out that they're the exact plans that were submitted for and approved, and they're signed both by the owner and by the planning committee, Strata Corp. So that would, to me, indicate that they're the exact plans.
Okay, that's what I was trying to find out. Okay, no follow-up?
No, thank you.
Councillor Patchy.
Well, Mr. Swaby just answered my last question, so I don't need to ask any further.
Okay, Councillor Beswick.
Thank you, Worship. Just very quickly, the cantilevering formed part of the approval that you referenced that was submitted?
Yeah, we've been dealing with planning in the city, and these are their ideas of how to improve my design. So we've been going back and forth for a while.
Thank you.
They know what we're doing.
Thanks. And I certainly know that trying to measure the heights of those walls from the four corners and all those various ways that we arrive at that number, we've had some issues related to that in the past, and it's a challenge. So I can only imagine on this site how challenging it is, and seeing some of the pictures of homes that are surrounding that area, it doesn't seem like a rare development, frankly. The home doesn't seem rare. So I thank you for your submission.
Okay, I see no further questions from council on this one. So thank you, Mr. Sestini. This will continue on, so thank you for that. Now, is there anyone? Yeah, anyone else? I think we're okay on this one. Anyone else would like to speak to the same matter? Come forward, sir.
Hello, council members. My name is Gordie Robinson, and I am a neighbor at 210 Fern Tree Place. I'm the house that's referred to just below the one that's proposed. I just got back from holidays, so it's come very, very quick for me to put anything together. But a couple of things, questions I have on the notification process is that even though I was away, the letter that was sent to me was sent on the 3rd of January. The post office has it marked as the 7th of January, and here's the 13th. So what is the notification timing?
Mr. Lindsay?
Your Worship, under our procedures and notification bylaw, we're required to have those notices out 10 days prior to the meeting. It could be that it was delayed at the post office, but it's from the time that it leaves our office.
Oh, this is 6 days' notice.
What date was it dated from the city, sir?
This was postmarked the 7th of January. I think it was in storage for a while. So that, but for me, for a homeowner, that's 6 days' notice. So if you're 10 days, then that's not enough for me. The next thing is that the height regulations that are in here, why are those height regulations set that way? What are the reasons that they're set for a house?
Mr. Lindsay, do you want to?
Your Worship, the specific regulations dealing with wall height came out of a bylaw review at a time when we were looking at monster homes. At that time, there was a suggestion to limit both floor area and to limit the wall face. Specifically, we were running into issues on the north slope where we had lots that were overlooking lots below. So it was trying to deal with that building face overlooking a property below it.
So those regulations were put in place for those reasons. So now that there's a variation to expand that to twice. So
Of course, I think you have to understand that every single building structure that's proposed won't fit into a certain definitive measurement. I mean, we have to allow for some type of variance or changes, and that's what we're looking at tonight.
I think we would all agree that there are things that can change, and a variance of a meter or so is probably reasonable, but this is a big change. It's a big change. I have, since I got notified, I took some quick pictures from our property, which is right underneath, to the property that's for the proposed building site. So my question is, are there 3D projection drawings of where this house is going to sit with respect to the rest of the neighborhood?
I'm not aware of that. Mr. Lindsay, are you familiar with that?
Well, I can tell the house itself is proposed to site as far back on the property as possible, and the portion identified as the garage actually sits 1.5 meters from what I would describe as the property line furthest away from the lake, whether you want to call it the front property line, I guess.
Your Worship, there are no 3D drawings included in the agenda tonight. There wasn't a requirement.
So there's no way of telling what this is going to look like with the rest of the neighborhood as to whether it fits?
Yes, Your Worship. The elevations are clearly delineating what the face of the buildings and the structure will look like. In my opinion, they're very similar to many of the houses that are on the water that I am aware of.
Okay, I heard the term that it's a three-story house. 3 stories of livable area is what I would determine it as, not 3 stories of height. It's actually a 4-story building by height. We're also very concerned about the safety. Because we're a very busy bed and breakfast, we have about 1,000 people a year walk around our property, and it's directly below where all the construction could eminently take place. So we're concerned for safety reasons. We also know that the rock that's there is we always find rocks in our driveway and on our sidewalks. So we know that the erosion is happening and that rocks will be falling directly down. This shows the height difference where we walk and where the construction is going to be. So we're very concerned about the safety and what rules will be put into place that's going to protect our property, our guests, and people that are in our area, because we're directly below where this could take place. And since I've had only a couple of hours of notification, I'm wondering if this could be tabled so that we have a chance to better do some research.
Okay, Councillor Patsy, you had a question?
Thank you, Worship. To staff, if I may. Is there a date that you can give us when the council approved the application?
The date of the letter is received by the city is November 29th, 2013, and the letter itself is dated October 7th, 2013.
Are you part of that council, Mr. Robinson?
Pardon me?
Are you part of that council?
No, I'm not.
You're not. Okay, thank you.
So I would assume that all of the residents in that area would form part of that. Is that not the case then? No. You're not part of the
I'm not part of the Strata Council, the board of members. But we're all members of the Strata, yes.
No, but I mean, so you didn't know about these other meetings that were held earlier that they've discussed it, and none of your neighbors even shed any light on this?
None, zero. I've known that the lot's been turned over a few times because it is very, very difficult to build on.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Yep.
Councillor Brennan.
Well, I would move to receive the delegation.
Okay, unless there's any further questions for the delegation? Okay, is there a seconder? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now, is there anyone else in attendance tonight that would like to speak to matters related to that property at 210 Woodhaven Drive?
May I ask, is the Strata Council a private use, land use, is this private? Is it a private? Was the Strata Council in looking after this private? Because even they look after roads, everything, so is it a private area?
No, it's, Your Worship, it's as described, the Bearland Strata.
So it's private?
Well, there's an interface between being private and being, having to conform with municipal regulations. So yes, they have their own sewer pipes, and they have their own street lights, and they have their own roads, but they have to get building permits.
So I
and
view
conform
this,
to zoning.
Mayor Rattan, as no different than a private 24-lot area of building schemes, covenants, which the city will give permits against and make us go to court to fight about it. The Strata Council should go to court to fight about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Brennan, did you have a comment?
No, not for Mr. Taylor.
Okay, sorry. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Kipp.
Yeah, Mr. Taylor, I'm trying to get to your point here. Yes, it's private roads in that area. Yes, it's private sewers in that. But so your point is that, if I can...
It's private in this city. The council, the city will issue permits contrary to, so carry on and let them go to court, just like I've had to go to court and spend thousands of dollars to protect the area I live in. So can the Strata Council. It's private.
A covenant.
So just issue, carry on as you're doing to me, or stop doing it to me.
Your Worship.
And other people, Lindbergh, Solaire, all kinds of areas, Sherwood Forest, all kinds of areas in the city that tried to develop areas like the Strata Council is trying to drive it here. Either keep your nose out or carry on doing it to these people too and let them go to court and fight about it. Just like you've made me and other people in Solaire, Lindbergh.
Well, I think if I can interject, the point is the people are more concerned that they didn't even hear about it. And I think in most of the notifications, we notify people when we're doing it, and I think this might have been missed on this one. Thank you.
It's where you're carrying on and shouldn't be recognized as strata title then.
Okay, Mr. Sweetie, you were going to make a comment?
I just want to make sure the public isn't going away with the wrong idea. The legislation related to building schemes and strata, Bearland stratas, is completely different and have no relevance in terms of how we regulate land on Bearland stratas. Their regulations are totally enforceable in terms of the building permit requirements. The building schemes are ones that we do not enforce.
But the courts do.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councillor Brennan, you had something?
Yes, Your Worship. I would move that we... Is there? I thought that was
I don't
the
know.
mayor
There's
would
no.
answer
I don't
that.
see any other
Yeah.
names, unless
I
they're.
just assumed.
Yeah, I did ask. Are there other speakers who would like to come down on this subject? Come on down. Just-
Yes, I live on the property just above.
Okay, sir, we just need your name and address.
My name is Garth Hill, and I live on the property just above this design property. And for me, the bungalow portion of it is looking fine. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is not the height of the building, neither, 30 feet. It's and not the stilts on the back of it that are 22 feet. But the foundation that goes underneath this building is another 10 feet beyond, 10 or 15 feet beyond the 30 feet. So it's going to make that structure look like it's 45 feet or 45 feet high. It's not just the post that's at the back, it's the foundation that goes down that one side as well.
May I ask?
The other thing that I'm concerned about is the view from the lake itself. Looking back up at this house, what they're going to do from the underside of this property to enhance the look of it. We haven't got any information on how the property is going to end up. The other thing is I have no information on how this is going to affect my property as far as the driveway entrance into his property goes right past mine. And there's an easement on my property so that he can turn around and access his garage.
Okay, my question to you was that if you're on Woodhaven Drive and look at the house, it would appear, from what I understand, as just a single level.
I don't have a problem with that part of it.
Yeah, but it's from the lake view, if you're on the lake,
Yeah.
that it looks quite a bit larger.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
from
you're
the-
going to be looking up, I don't know, 50 feet. There's probably still a drop beyond that house of another 50 feet down to the lake at least. And so you're going to be looking up 100 feet up into the bottom of this house with a big concrete foundation on one side of it. So I'm just wondering if they have anything that's going to show what's going to be done to the underside of the house and to the back of it.
Okay, sir.
And how it's going to impact my property too. I haven't seen anything about the driveway that's going to access that property. There's a 13-foot panhandle driveway that goes down the length of my property, which is about 100 feet. And then this house, the garage starts within 5 feet of my property.
Okay, sir. I see.
But I never got any information from the strata. I never got any information from the city or anything else until a week ago. And then I went down to the city and pulled the plans myself. But I never got anything from the city in regards to that. I got this letter, the same letter that Brian got about a week ago.
Okay, sir. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the delegation? And Councillor Brennan, you had something you were going to
Yes.
do? Because I believe is there anyone else that wanted to speak to this matter out there? Seeing none, Councillor Brennan.
Okay, thanks. I think that there's a great deal of confusion around what occurred and what has occurred and what could occur and what it will look like and what it won't look like, and where we are in the process, and whether, I think it's quite clear that the Strata Council signed off on it. Whether or not there was a clear understanding of what that meant, I don't know. But it seems also clear that both sides of this are interested in learning exactly what is proposed, what it's going to look like, and I imagine that the proponent is just as anxious to have an opportunity to explain to his neighbors what he wants to do and why he thinks it's necessary and what it will look like. So I think our staff can assist with those discussions, and I would move that we refer this matter back to staff to conduct consultation and discussion between the proponent and the Strata Council and neighborhood.
Okay, is there a timeline on your motion?
I think that they should take the time that's necessary, whether
Okay.
that's a week or more, I don't know.
Okay, that's your motion, and it's seconded. Councillor Patch, you jumped in. Is this on the motion?
The motion?
Yep. Sorry, a new motion?
No, that,
on the
I just
motion,
want to
sorry.
address Councillor Brennan's
Yep.
motion, and I happen to agree with that.
Okay.
There's a sense of fairness that I'm having some trouble with, that if the correspondence that our staff received happened in October and November, and somehow, not through any fault of the city, that has not filtered through to the immediate neighbors, then that is very problematic to me. I've also heard enough tonight, as Councillor Brennan said, that too many people don't know how this might affect their own property. And so I think sending this back to staff at this point is the one and only thing that I would feel comfortable with. There still is the word, even though Mr. Testini may not agree with that, there is this word called compromise. That if that is not possible, then at least everybody has to have an exactly and a clear mind as to what's coming their way. And that's not the case right now. So we need the time to do that, and I'll be supportive of Councillor Brennan's motion.
Okay. Mrs. Swaby, no comment?
probably important to understand that the delays that this might be, if it's important, is that any changes that are made to the plan, of course, has to go back through a development variance permit, which would require notification, so 2 councils plus the 10 days. I suspect it's going to have to go to the planning committee at the strata and then to their council. And I don't know how often their council meets, but I would suspect this is 2-3 months, possibly.
So in your professional opinion, Mrs. Swaby, there's no way to accelerate it beyond that?
Your worship, we will of course try whatever we can to expedite the application. We're somewhat at the mercy with their council meeting dates and their planning committee, whatever they'd like to do with it, plus whatever of course, negotiating whatever the owners want as a compromise. The statutory things we can't remove.
Okay. Councillor Brennan, did you have any further? No. Councillor Kipp.
I heard the strata say they wanted this to move forward. They don't want to stop development, so hopefully they can get together and staff can try and facilitate this as quickly as possible. Hopefully there'll be no changes, so the statutory notification won't be changed. So I appreciate the fact that staff will get on this one. Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. This is one of those that I certainly wish that we weren't having to sit here to referee. In view of the fact that the information that's been submitted hasn't changed since its last iteration, which I understand from the developer was the 12th change, and now to know that we're going to probably be putting this in abeyance for 8 weeks or more is really perplexing to me, and it seems like the communication is where the breakdown is, and not whether or not this project will come back looking any different in 8 weeks or however long than it does today, other than the fact that we'll have the opportunity to be more expressive in the communication with the strata and the developer and the city who's already signed off on it. So I'm not in favor of being amenable to compromise, but at the same time, the developer, in his own right and privileges, had this approved, barring better communications. So if at the end of the day, we simply have better communications through the strata to ensure that the neighboring folk know what's going on in their neighborhood, we could be back here with the exact same proposal in front of us just 8 to 12 weeks later with better communication. And that, to me, is troubling for anybody in the development community. Just a comment.
Well, I think, did you have something you were going to?
I would just, if I could speak to Councillor Bestwick's. I believe that Mr. Garth Field had some safety concerns, and I think those can all be addressed without delaying the development permit tonight. I think that Mr. Destini will be very reasonable in working with the neighbors and addressing their concerns in the best way he can. So I hate to see it delayed for any length of time over a matter of maybe 2 weeks. And I understand we can't do that. So hopefully if it goes forward tonight, there'll be some good communication between the developer and the neighborhood.
Okay, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to agree with Councillor Johnstone and Councillor Bestwick on this one. I don't feel that this should be delayed any further. For us to delay this just so that we can get the same plans back 3-4 months from now, I don't think is the best use of our time nor the developer's time. So I won't be supporting the motion to refer.
Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Worship. This is a little bit different situation than a normal neighborhood. This is I consider the entire neighborhood to be, in my view, a parent parcel. They own the sewers, they own the sidewalks, they own the roadways, all of that. So then it's carved off into these little parcels. And we know that in this particular situation, because of the Bearland Strata, that any approval for a building or a renovation has to go through the Strata Council and have their approval. And tonight, the Strata Council are not giving it their approval. They're saying, we did not approve that. We're not approving it. So until such time as it's approved by the Strata Council, it behooves me to approve it, because of the unusual nature of this particular application.
I think the challenge for us is that it's been brought forward by staff. I think that not only has the city, but the council has also signed off on this earlier. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Worship. There's been no Strata Council members here tonight. The only thing we have is a letter emphatically approving the plans from the Strata Council itself. Mr. McCullough is a member of the Planning Committee, who also states that their committee approved it, but he has since changed his mind. So in terms of their Strata Council, they've approved it.
But just for clarity, what they approved is exactly the same plan that's before us tonight?
That's correct.
Another twist. Oh.
Not what I'm hearing.
Okay, there's still some more. Yeah, we'll see. We've got Councillor Anderson. Did you want to have another?
I just wanted that clarification from our city manager that there was approval from the Strata Council, because that's what I've heard from this conversation, and Councillor McKay's comments were oppositional to that earlier comment. So
yeah.
Thank you.
And plus the fact that the city also approved it as well. So, Councillor Bestwick, do you have something?
Well, just Your Worship, I mean, we've kind of debated this long enough, and I'm not certain if it's appropriate for any delegation to return to the podium to qualify or clarify their positions. But when I hear that the Strata has approved the exact plan that the city has received that we're either endorsing or not tonight, and then I hear that no, we're not approving it, it creates a mystery. And I would much prefer to vote on something that's not a mystery than what I know to be the absolute basis of fact, because otherwise somebody here is going to be delayed, or considerable amount more money is going to have to be spent, or not. And so I don't think that is fair. So before I can vote, I need to hear that this plan is fundamentally different than what was approved by the Strata Council whenever it was approved and then submitted to the city for approval. And whether or not there's any liability in our case if, in fact, we've done those things and then we delay a person. So and regardless of who the applicant is or otherwise. So if I could indulge one of the delegations to return and convince
Okay,
me
before you
otherwise.
do, Mr. McCullough, I think Mr. Destini had walked down, and then did you have something you want to add, Mr. Destini? And then we'll have Mr. McCulloch after you. You know, normally we don't do this. People have spoken and so on, but this is a very difficult one, and there's a motion on the floor, which we want to deal with too. But I think the biggest problem that I'm having, and I can only speak for myself, is that there seems to be a lot of, for one reason or another, misinformation, and I'm just trying to find the difference between fact and maybe some of it's being...
Point of order.
Sure.
It does seem like we are confused as to the facts, and that's why a referral to staff would be more appropriate than continuing to grill each party as to what they knew and when they knew it. What we need to do is to refer this back to our staff to sort out those misunderstandings.
I agree.
I think, Councillor Brennan, the concern I've got, though, is that if it was something that could be done in a week or 2 weeks, I would feel a little more comfortable. But I think what I'm told from staff, which we have all heard, is this could be 2 or 3 months delay if it's referred back. Is that not correct, Mr. Lindsay or Mr. Swaby? Or if it's referred back, I mean, what is the worst case scenario that's reasonable?
I think 2 months. Best case is that the plan comes back in the same fashion and council approves it at the next council meeting. But there's all the gray area of what the Strata wants to do with it, what the immediate owners that you've heard from tonight expect from a referral, and what the owner is willing to compromise on, given that he already has approval from the strata. A lot of unknowns. I suspect this will be a very difficult type of compromise to reach.
You know, just for the benefit of people here and at home, you know, what is being circulated around is a letter from the Long Lake Heights Estates, a strata community, and it's addressed to the city of Nanaimo and signed by Carol Walters for the planning committee, and that they've approved the site, signed by her, and then underneath it, I, Mike Testini, being the owner of the property, confirmed, and so he has signed off it as well. And this was stamped November 29th, 2013 from the city. So a lot of work has been going on, but maybe in isolation of some of the people. Mr. Testini, do you want to make any comments?
One last comment. We've gone through the process. We've gone through the planning committee at our strata. Now, we have a board. They make the decisions on behalf of the strata. So not all strata members will know what's going on. They can go to the meetings and find out. It's in the minutes. But just because they don't doesn't mean that they can say here, well, I didn't know. Right? That's just like another city person in Nanaimo not coming to these meetings and saying, well, I didn't know. They approved my plans. The city approved my plans. We've been doing this now since May of last year. I don't know what else to do, right? We're within our height. The only reason why we're here is because the city wanted the height of wall measurement goes from the footing in their terms. When you read the height of wall, I'm within that boundary. So my actual wall height, I'm in there. We wouldn't even be sitting here if my foundation was buried underground. It's solid rock. I can't do that. Right? It's approved lot from the city. I have no other choice. But all approvals have been done. So to say there's confusion that they weren't, Brian was on the planning committee. He's already approved these plans. So for him to come now, they haven't changed. It's just confusing to me. So as far as I know, everyone's approved. Everybody's on board. My strata, the city. I don't know what else to say.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
And Mr. McCulloch, do you want to make a comment? And then we're going to wrap it up and have a vote here.
Well, we approved the plans. But after we've approved the plans, Mr. Testini has come for a variance. So obviously, that's not what we approved. Now we're looking at, instead of 27.5 feet or 27.9 feet, we're looking at a 53-foot wall. So it's a totally different animal than what we had approved. The character of that home is going to drastically overshadow everything around it. And if Mr. Testini had brought plans in here, got a variance, brought it to us, we approved it and said, okay, we understand. Wow, is that the only way you can build it? Then I wouldn't be here. But the variance is after we approved it. It is not what we approved. We looked at it, 27.5 feet, 27.9, and now we're looking at a 53-foot structure, shear wall structure.
Okay, sir. I just want to ask, the letter, I guess, has been circulated around. Now, could someone on staff tell me that this plan that was approved, not only by the city, but also by the Strata Council, thank you very much. Is this what we approved, and is what we're looking at tonight exactly the same animal, or has there been modifications made to the plans submitted since this date? Are these one and the same?
Your Worship, that's what that letter is saying. They're one and the same. And yes, that's what they are.
So when the delegation says that this is totally different from what they understood they approved, I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth, but I mean, we're trying to make a decision here, and this conflicts with what we're told.
And Your Worship, I would concur that you should refer it back, and we'll go to the planning committee ourselves with the applicant, and we'll find out why there is a disagreement.
But will that not trigger a big, long 2-month delay? Or?
It might, Your Worship, but I sense and understand that there's a lot of confusion created by a member of the planning committee here telling you that that isn't the case, that the plan's changed. So I think that it's worthy of approaching the Strata Council and talking to them directly, and we'll find out and get to the bottom of it.
And if a consensus can be agreed upon, that would expedite this thing rather than delay it another 2 months, or is that?
Your Worship, we'll do our best in every avenue we can find to make sure we can expedite whatever happens, and we'll do whatever powers we have within the Municipal Act to do.
Yeah, I can understand the opponents. I mean, they've got some concerns if this has changed from what their understanding was. And yet Mr. Testini, on his part, of course, has spent, what, a year and a half, something like that, trying to get this thing driven through. And if, in fact, it hasn't changed substantially since the approval that was granted to him, I have a real problem delaying this thing unnecessarily. So,
may I make a comment? I guess the question would be, would this home look any different with the variance? And it's going to look drastically different from, you're going to have a 53-foot sheer wall. So whether, you know, what we approved, if the floor plans were what we approved, it is now going to be this. And it is definitely going to look much different. If you ask the question, is it going to look different than what we approved? Absolutely. There's no question.
okay, well, on the motion to refer, but we've got about half a dozen here. Councillor Bessick, did you have something there?
No, Your Worship.
No. Councillor Brennan, do you have anything to add?
No, and my understanding was the motion to refer wasn't debatable, but.
Well, it's on there now, but, you know, this is a very contentious thing. So, Councillor Patchy, did you want to add something to it?
Yes, I do. This is exactly why I believe Councillor Brennan's motion is appropriate. There is a dispute, and I don't think this is the place nor the time to try and resolve that. We've been at it for an hour and 10 minutes, practically. To send this back to staff with a time limitation if need be is the only way to go, as far as I can see.
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
I'd like to see a time restriction on this back. The interesting thing on this, we always confuse because to try and get the height at 27 feet, it's that averaging around. So if you've got points in the front of the house that jog and they're only 8 feet high, and you've got 30 feet at the back, that's where this confusion sometimes lies. So the average points around the house, you could easily make it. But on this one, that steep bluff makes a difference. So I believe this one we need to refer. We do need to.
Could you read the motion, please?
Yes, Your Worship. The motion on the floor is to refer this application back to staff to conduct consultation discussion between the proponent and Strata Council.
Okay. I'll somewhat reluctantly support the motion to refer back, only if I have an understanding, and staff has given that to me, that they'll do anything to expedite it. It's a tough one, but there's so many questions we don't have answers to, and to make a decision based on an approximate understanding of what's taken place is very difficult for me. So let's call a question on that. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry? We're going down into the Development Variance Permit DVP 224 at 6337 Desmond Road. Purpose to seek council authorization to vary a front yard setback in order to permit the demolition and reconstruction of a partially covered deck attached to an opening to an existing single-family dwelling by decreasing the front yard setback by 3.3 meters. And at this point, we're asking, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this matter of 6337 Desmond Road? Come down, sir, or whoever wants to. If you just raise your hand and then come down, let's move it along. If anyone else in the audience would like to speak to these matters, if they could maybe take a temporary seat over here somewhere so we can move this along a little faster. Otherwise, we're not sure exactly what's going on. Welcome, ma'am. We just need your name and address and your whether you're for or against the project.
Yes, sir. My name is Jeanette Jensen, and I am the owner of the property at 121 Sharon Place, the house next door to the property in question.
Okay.
I submitted my concerns to council in writing on December the 15th, and my husband and I are here tonight to reiterate our opposition to the application. We understand that Dr. and Mrs. Hasselback are within the bylaws to replace the current deck with a larger deck, and please note we are not opposed to that, to the building of the larger deck. What we do oppose, however, is the new design that indicates a two-story structure. It's a larger deck, fully covered, which means that a new roof will be pushed out towards the Sharon Place Road and right alongside our house. Only 1.5 meters separates their house to our property line. So this new extension does matter to us. Contrary to their statement in the submission to you, this new two-story structure will block our ocean and mountain views to the southeast. Our house is slightly higher in elevation, so their new roof will actually be at eye level for us, blocking the views, but also looking like a wall that will be visible from inside our house, from all the windows in the front and some on the side. A secondary concern for us is the driveway. Our driveway into the garage is on that side of the property. And with the new two-story extension looming over the garage, this could be a bit of a safety concern for us as we're exiting onto Sharon Place Road. In Dr. Hasselback and Mrs. Hasselback's letter to the neighbors in late November, they stated their intent to remove a current deck and rebuild a slightly larger, partially covered deck. When the details of the actual plans were released mid-December, we were a bit shocked to see that the deck, in fact, would be much larger and completely covered with a new roof for about 80% of the deck surface. There is no other house that has a covered deck so close to the road, and it's a design that we think will be a bit of an oddity and out of character for the houses in this neighborhood. I'm also here to ensure that you are aware of the opposition of many of our neighbors. My husband and I are not on our own. Barry and Carol Lawler at 100 Sharon Place, that's directly across the property. Daryl Brunlin at 104 Sharon Place. Army and Carla Montrose at 108 Sharon Place. Les and Mary Bullock at 124 Sharon Place. Dale and Ula Clausa at 125 Sharon Place. Ula is with us this evening. Russell and Tammy Beals at 128 Sharon Place, and John Busey at 129 Sharon Place. These are all homeowners, some who have submitted letters to you regarding this variance permit application. Safety is a key issue for everyone because this new two-story structure will impede the sight lines for the motorists and cyclists and walkers approaching the corner of Desmond and Sharon. And then there's a second corner within the cul-de-sac. And then there is a general feeling of, it has to do with fairness, that one neighbor would benefit at the expense of another. So to close, this is, it's a new experience and a bit of an uncomfortable one for my husband and I. At first, where a neighbor is actually going to be taking something that we've enjoyed for 16 years. What confounds us in a sense is that one neighbor can gain at the expense of another, all with council's approval. We've always thought the bylaws are rules for all to abide by. If council approves the variance permit, Dr. and Mrs. Hasselback will enhance the value of their property. This we have no doubt, but it comes at our expense. Thank you.
Okay, if I may, just to staff, the delegation suggested that there's a vehicular risk at the corner, the intersection of Desmond and Sharon. Is that, Has that been looked at? Is that a concern that we also identified?
Your
Or not?
Worship, I certainly don't want to disagree with any comments that the residents would have or with their concerns about traffic. But what I would say is the building as proposed is well outside of the site angles that we look at when we're reviewing buildings. Also, I would just mention that all these measurements that we're talking about, these setbacks, are from the property line. And there's quite a substantial boulevard around this property of almost 3 meters. So that 3 meters, we measure from the edge of the road, not from the edge of the pavement, is what I'm trying to say. So there's that additional area. For example, I heard the concern about backing the vehicle out and concern about being able to see. There is that additional area before you enter the actual roadway itself.
Okay, we've got a couple of speakers for the delegation or for staff?
Yes,
delegation. Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Can you tell me, you submitted some pictures, some before and after pictures from your deck, where it appears as though somebody's drawn an after, which would show the roof jutting out, proposed. Did you seek any advice from a designer, an architect, or anybody like that that would assist you with this rendering, or did you do that on your own?
Well, we did it essentially on our own, but with the help of a neighbor who happens to be in construction. He's a roofer. And so given the measurements with the limited information that we had in the drawings, I asked him to show us what it would like, for example, from our bay window and also from our deck. I actually submitted, I think it's 9 photographs, but I saw from the website in your package, I think 2 or 3 made its way to you.
Yes, yes. So you didn't get the assistance of an architect or a designer?
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship.
And may I?
That's okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, and in some way, it kind of goes to the concerns of the previous speakers. We got very short notice on this. We only got access to the drawings and to the details thanks to our new neighbors, to Dr. Hasselback. And the letter from the city with the information came much later. And so it's very difficult when you're left with, in our case, I think it came down to 9 business days to try to scramble, to try to put something together to get a sense to see how far is this roof actually going to extend past our house.
Okay, Councillor Patchy.
To staff, Your Worship, if I may. The photograph that Councillor McKay alluded to on page 37 with the blocked out view that was just discussed. I drove to Sharon and Desmond yesterday, and I had trouble visualizing that. Now, I mentioned that to you this morning, Mr. Lindsay, and you said you might have a chance to go out yourself this afternoon. Did you? And if you did, do you believe this is a reasonable explanation of the view that might be lost or not?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I was able to attend the property. What I would say with respect to the sketch that's shown on page 37, maybe for reference, I would look at the existing deck. It's somewhat difficult to make out in that photo, but the existing deck is about 6 feet in width. The proposal is to increase that to a 12-foot deck. So that gives you an order of magnitude there, so sort of double what you're seeing in that image and have that area covered. So my interpretation is there's certainly going to be an intrusion of a roof into that image that we're seeing here. My take is it's not to the extent that's shown in this sketch drawing.
Okay, thank you for that. And then just an observation to Mrs. Jensen. Views, I know, are important. They contribute to the value of your property. But in my 5 years, almost 6 on this council, we've had numerous instances where people complained about losing views. Where I live in Departure Bay, I used to have a complete view of Jessie Island. I can't see it anymore. It's gone. So Mr. Swaby, help me out. Is there anything that we ever do with regards to saving views?
Your Worship, this is a bit of a value judgment that council has to make in terms of how much view loss is acceptable. The pictures, unfortunately, and I'm not that familiar with the area, but I suspect that the views actually extend to the left as you're looking at those pictures as well, but I could be wrong. So partially, this obstructs part of the view, but I suspect there's still other views that are left. This is going to be something that council is going to have to make a value judgment in terms of whether it's too much or whether it meets the intent of protecting somewhat the views.
So, from a neighborly point of view, I'm with you. I think that it is important to come to some sort of understanding with one's neighbors to save as much as you can. And I wish you well.
Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. To staff, if I look at the railing in the rendition, the railing would be at the 6-foot mark. So if I were to look at Ms. Jensen's railing, that would, if I projected that beyond, that would be about 9 feet, almost 10 feet. So that a roof could be constructed over that deck to that point with no variance. Am I correct?
That is correct, Councillor McKay. You could actually, you could cover the existing deck with a roof that would be allowed, but you could also extend that deck up to, I believe, 8 feet. So you could have an 8-foot deck there that was covered before you would be in the point of requiring a variance, and you could even extend an uncovered deck even further.
So the only thing that I'm having trouble with is understanding the height of that roof, whether it would go to the extreme height apex of the current roof, or whether it would go up to the height of one of those small little hip roofs. I would suspect it would be one of the hip roofs, would it not?
Your Worship, the drawings that we received don't show it being the same height as you call it, the apex of the roof on, on the main portion of the house. Is actually slightly lower. I know that the agents in the audience tonight and can probably speak best to that specific in terms of how high we're talking about.
Thank you.
Your Worship, it might help council to look at page 36. The two pictures provide a couple of revealing things that you may want to consider. One is the top one illustrates the view that the current speaker enjoys, and the second one provides some information to Councillor McKay's question about where the existing deck is and how the roof line may project out.
Councillor McKay, are you...
I'm done, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Kipp.
Thank you. Just a question to staff. I have nothing of the delegation, so we can move receipt of the delegation if no one has. So I'd move receipt of the delegation if no one has a.
Okay. Moving second, all in favor? Thank you, ma'am.
Through the staff, with the address being Desmond, and we're saying we're using the front yard setback, decreasing the front yard setback. So is this an actually Sharon Place front yard? Because this is a corner lot, which is typically 13 foot for the secondary street setback and 20 feet from the front, or the metric dimensions if you want them. But is this really a side yard setback variation of 3 meters? Or is this the side or the front yard? Because usually the address is the front yard.
On a corner lot, we typically would use the term front or flanking side yard.
Flanking is what I would like to...
And in this case, although the property's addressed off Desmond and has its access off Desmond, it was originally built with Sharon Place being the front yard and the rear being opposite of that. So there is some flexibility when you're dealing with corner lots. This house has been designed as having Sharon as the front yard setback.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. As we've heard and as we've read, I have no issues with the expansion of the deck, but my issue is with the covering of the expanded deck. And so I can say that I will not be supporting the recommendation.
Well, yeah, as you can see that. Is there anyone else in attendance that would like to speak? Coming down, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Michelle Bates. I'm with Palladian Developments. I'm here on
Sorry,
behalf
could you
of the
stand right
owner.
in front of the microphone, then we can, then we can
go.
hear you.
I'm Michelle Bates. I'm with Palladian Developments, and I'm here on behalf of the owner.
Okay.
I think it's really great that the neighborhood's so interested in what's going on and that they've all turned out here. That's really nice. I read the letters. I think there was a little bit of confusion with the setback because there's a, I think it's 3.25 meter setback with the city, and then the front yard actually starts from there. So there's going to be just over 6 meters left in the front yard once the deck is extended and covered. The height of the roof matches the gable that's on the other side. So if you look at the picture they've done with the black, it's actually about half that height. The views that may be affected are actually, they look like from the pictures that they're already affected by the trees that are currently there in between the two houses, as well as in the landscape when you see past there. And the main ocean view is still accessible and there to be fully enjoyed by everybody. Traffic, I don't see where that will be an issue at all. The deck is 6.5 meters back. It's not covered. It's fully open at the bottom. You'll be able to see through it, and there's no way that it should affect any traffic at all. Right now, in between the houses, as I said, there's trees there, and it looks like in the spring when they bloom that portion of the view will be affected at any rate. So we're not looking to detract from any of the homeowners' enjoyment. We're trying to add to the curb appeal of what's already there. It enhances the whole neighborhood as well as the people that we're currently building for.
So, if I may, then, in your opinion, that the views will not be impaired to the extent that your earlier delegations had suggested?
No, I don't.
I'm not saying I'm not asking you to say they were wrong. I'm just asking you for an opinion.
That's just my opinion.
Sure, fair enough. Okay, Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. You've answered most of my questions, and just to refer to your comment about the neighbours being here and being involved, I have to compliment the applicants for their participation with the neighbourhood.
Absolutely.
I've never received letters like that before from a neighbour that is being disruptive because of construction on their home and whatnot. And it sounds to me like neighbours have been to their home and have enjoyed their home, and it sounds like a great neighbourhood.
Yeah, it does.
Compliments to them.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Your Worship, if there's no further delegations, I'd like to move this staff's recommendation.
Okay, then if someone would like to move receipt of the Discus delegation.
So
and
moved.
second, all in favor? Thank you, ma'am, appreciate that. Now, is there anyone else in attendance tonight that would like to speak to matters related to this particular site on Desmond Road? And seeing none, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to move that Council issue development variance permit number DVP 224 to decrease the front yard setback to a 3.3 meter at 6337 Desmond Road.
Okay, is there a seconder? Second motion. Discussion. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? We have Councillor McKay, Councillor Beswick, and Councillor Patchy opposed. Balance council in favor. Is that correct?
I don't think Councillor McKay is.
Sorry, did I say Greens?
No,
Sorry. Sorry. It's really late. I just got back, remember? Okay, the motion passes, and you're in accordance with that. Thank you. Okay, so funny, I was hoping the same thing. So now we're into D, Development Variance Permit DBP 225 at 1445 Princess Royal Avenue. Purpose to obtain council approval to proceed with the required statutory notification for Development Variance Permit DBP 225 at 1449 Princess Royal Avenue. If someone would like to... Thank you, Councillor Greaves. Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into item E, rezoning application RA 278 at 4125 Jingle Pot Road. Purpose to present an application to rezone 4125 Jingle Pot Road from single dwelling residential R1 to light industrial I2 in order to permit a light industrial development. And there's...
Staff's recommendation?
Thank you.
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
is to receive the information and report pertaining to zoning and direct staff to secure the road dedication, shared access, and community contribution prior to the adoption of bylaw. Should council support the bylaw at third reading?
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Pardon me. Into the bylaw.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2014, number 4500.057, that is RA 278, to rezone 4125 Jinglepot Road from single dwelling residential R1 to light industrial I2 in order to construct buildings for light industrial uses, past third reading.
Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item F, RA 324 at 4015 and part of 4001 Corona Avenue. Purpose is to present an application to rezone 4015 Corona Avenue and part of 4001 Corona Avenue from single dwelling residential R1 and neighborhood center CC2 to residential corridor COR1 in order to construct an office building.
Your Worship?
Yep.
Did we miss the second reading?
Oh, I'm sorry,
on
we
the
did.
Previous budget.
I think we did.
So I'll move that too, sorry. The zoning amendment bylaw 2014, number 4500.57, pass second reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kipp. So now we're going into RA 324 for that office building thing. Would someone like to move that particular item? Councillor Brennan? Second. Moved. Councillor Bisswick, second. Discussion on that. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into the bylaw underneath that, and the bylaw for zoning first reading, and then we'll do that one, and then we'll go into the second reading.
Move the one for first reading?
Second. All those in favor? Opposed?
Move third reading?
Second reading.
Second reading. I can't move that fast, can I? The zoning amendment bylaw 2014, 4500, number .055.
Councillor Bisswick, you're doing the second on that? All those in
Speed
favor?
this up.
Opposed? Motion carries. Medical marijuana, zoning amendment. Purpose to introduce an amendment which would remove medical marijuana as a permitted use within the industrial I4 zone and make the production of medical marijuana within the industrial I4 zone site specific to the property at 1100 Mon Road. The staff recommendation is there.
I will move the council receive for information the report. I apologize.
No, that's good. No, that's fine.
Report pertaining to zoning amendment bylaw 2014 4500.059.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Oop, boop, boop, boop. I didn't say any names there. Oh,
The bylaw?
yeah. So, well, no, we're doing the items 1 and 2 at the very top of page 4.
Pardon me.
We're doing staff's recommendation for the medical marijuana zoning amendment.
Yep.
And then we're going to do the bylaw.
Okay, sorry, but the first, we're doing the recommendation to start with.
Correct.
Okay, so everyone's happy. So that it's been moved and seconded on that one. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move into the bylaw.
And Councillor Johnson would like to move the bylaw.
Would you like to move that one?
Yes, Worship, that zoning amendment bylaw 2014, number 4500.059, to remove medical marijuana as a permitted use within the industrial I4 zone and make the production of medical marijuana within the industrial I4 zone site specific to the property at 1100 Mon Road, pass first reading.
Is there a seconder for the first reading? All those in favor? Opposed?
And your
No,
worship-
sorry.
on
You
it,
want to speak to that one?
your
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry. We're moving too quickly here. Councillor McKay.
I can't vote in favor of this at this particular point in time, and I know this has been really confusing and it's been a nightmare and so on and so forth. I think our big challenge is that we have to somehow convince the province that this is not growing tomatoes. This is not mushrooms. This is not growing rose hips for vitamin C and so on and so forth. This is a very, very dangerous product relative to societal issues, relative to security of sites, And the reason why I feel so strongly about this is a very good friend of mine lives in Maple Ridge next to one of these licensed medical marijuana operations. And they've had to get dogs to protect themselves from all of the activities in and around this product that the province wants to treat like tomatoes or raspberries. Marijuana is not like tomatoes and raspberries. It's a very, very special product. And when you've got people wandering through your yard to try to break into the property next door that's growing it, I think we need to take consideration for security. This is a commercial industrial operation, as will all of the future applications. If it means that we have to go to the province and we've got to convince them that this is a commercial operation and not an agricultural use of the land, then so be it. If it means we have to start at AVICC and move up to UBCM, I'm really concerned about taking this out of an industrial area, not allowing it in industrial areas. I understand there's some complications with the covenants, but I really believe that we need to consider this to be an industrial product, and it should be grown and harvested and manufactured and shipped and processed on industrial property and not solely.
Okay, we've got several other questions. I just might say, Councillor McKay, that one of the concerns is that I don't know that we have the luxury of that kind of time because we have an applicant that wants to start on the project right now. And so if we went to UBCM or AVICC or any other associations to try to elicit some support for a change, remember that these organizations are developing these properties consistent with existing provincial law. This is a fairly new change by the province. So I got to, say I have some concerns about it too, but we're dealing now with a very site-specific issue at 1100 Mon Road. So I don't know that we have the luxury of saying, well, let's just put everything on hold until the province looks at it again.
But, Your Worship, if I might, 1100 Mon Road is zoned for this use, is it not? Because we zoned it months ago for this use.
Yes, but this is a zoning amendment that would make the production on this one and other sites very much specific to that property. It wouldn't be a zone, but it would be to a property. Maybe staff want to expand on that.
Yes, Your Worship. If council were to adopt this zoning bylaw, all the permitted uses would be removed from all the lots in the I-4 zone, with the exception of 1100 Mon Road. It would be site-specific to continue to allow the operation.
But it would not go forward to future applications. Am I correct? I-4 applications.
Yes, I think Councillor McKay, Your Worship, is looking for some direction to remove it from the agricultural zones, as an example, which would have to have the province involved, because the province does consider it to be a farm use. And I anticipate in the future, when the taxation issue is resolved by the province, that you may want to put it back into the I-4 zone without having to have a rezoning. But at this point, it's a balance between council's desire to have taxation as each application comes forward individually.
Okay, well, just for clarification on this for council, if Councillor McKay's concern is the possible loss of potential tax revenue from I-4, from industrial lands, if this proceeds, that's a very real concern that I've got as well. And I don't disagree with the concern about public safety in that area, with the potential for break-ins and so on in a product that valuable, I guess, to the public. The point being, if they do apply and get consent from the province to exempt it as agricultural land and not pay taxes on it, I have a real problem with us paying and the surrounding neighbors paying for protective services, the police and fire and so on, to assure the safety of that one when they are taking steps not to pay for these services by avoiding taxes. But I think it's important to point out at this particular point that this corporation that's developing this thing, Mr. Swaby, I believe has given us a covenant or an undertaking of some type that they will not apply And there's an agreement to that in effect already?
That's correct, Your Worship. And by carrying out this rezoning, by removing it from all the zones, you would have the opportunity to do the same with any future applications.
Future ones, right. Okay. Councillor Kipp.
Thank you. Just that clarification that I need. I think if I can get one more from staff, Your Worship. We will deal with these. If somebody else comes forward, we'll deal with site-specific locations from now on.
Absolutely, Your Worship. Our understanding is council would like to see these applications happen in the I-4 zones, but you would like to receive the taxation duly received from them. So we would provide that information to any applicant and ask for a rezoning application and support it with the documentation, the proper documentation.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Just with regard to Councillor McKay's concern about the safety and security issues, as I recall, when the proponent came before council, they were very clear in the huge steps they were taking to ensure that security was a major issue there, and with fencing and siren, all sorts of equipment. So I don't believe there'll be any way anybody could invade or get into those premises. So I think that's been taken care of.
Okay, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will support this. I think it's a reasonable response to what we identify as a problem with regard to the agricultural property tax issues. So it would be my inclination to go ahead and support this and pass it, but then give staff some direction and request that they bring back to council a resolution that we could take forward to the ABICC to ask the province to deal with the property tax implications, or the property tax. I don't think they call it zoning, but whatever the BC Assessment Authority does. So it seems to me two very different issues, somehow related, but we can deal with them separately and effectively, I think. So it would be my intention after this to bring forward a motion to instruct staff that way.
Okay, Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Worship. My point is that I believe right from start to finish, there's a very small portion of this project, or any project like it, that is the growing and harvesting of. Most of it's an industrial activity. If this was an activity where they were making aspirin, we would never consider putting it out in an agricultural setting or in a residential. It would have to go into a commercial and industrial zone. It's just a very small portion of that facility that's involved in the growth of, and it's an industrial activity. I'm concerned that if we pass this and take it out of I-4 exclusively, I think we should be heading the other direction. It should be an industrial use only, and take our lumps with the province and work our way through it, and so on and so forth. We've passed bylaws before that need ministerial assent that are outside of our purview. We could do it again. So I'm really concerned this is an industrial activity that needs special care and attention, and I don't think we're doing that right now, because I think what's going to happen is if it's not allowed in I-4, everything's going to go out into the ALR or agricultural reserve lands. And there's a lot of areas that I can think of in Nanaimo where a lot of those lands are very small parcels surrounded by neighborhoods. And I just don't believe that's an appropriate use of agricultural
Swaby,
land.
you want to clarify it because...
Yeah, Your Worship, it's an interesting point because council or the regional board, to my understanding, doesn't have any control of whether an applicant wishes to have these operations in ALR lands, because the province has deemed them to be an agricultural use. Council, on the other hand, took the proactive approach to say, no, we want them in the industrial areas, so let's amend our industrial zones, and we did that. Not knowing that the province didn't think through what the implications were for local taxation. So now here we are wanting to receive our taxation. The only way to do that is to remove the use, encourage them to locate in the industrial, but through a rezoning application, and that way we can garner the necessary documentation for taxation. So regardless of what you do for the industrial zones, they can still go in the agricultural land reserve properties until the province changes the regulations.
But I'm not sure that really clarifies the point that we're trying to raise here. What I think the issue is that we want to make sure that the motion here, the intent is to remove the site specific to this property at 1100 Bond Road, but that would not supersede the existing agreement we have in place with the developers for the product that they want.
Sorry, Your Worship, the rezoning application, so what we're doing now, if council approves this zoning, is to remove it from the I-4 zone with the exception of the property that's zoned for 1100 Mon Road.
Because we dealt with that one.
Yeah, but this zoning bylaw would exclude it and make it site-specific, so it doesn't change on that property,
Right.
but it removes it from all the other I-4 zone property.
But new developments would be affected by that.
That's correct.
Can I just ask one follow-up? So that being said, 1100 Mon Road would be a conforming use?
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Pachi.
Thank you, Worship. Well, with that reasoning then, what would prevent another operation such as the one on Mon Road to apply in another zoning? Would we have to go through the same motion other than I-4?
The benefit is there is no properties in the NIMO other than the agriculturally zoned parcels that can permit this use. So council's in control of any application other than in the agricultural land reserve, which you don't control anyway.
So just for clarity's sake, this is an Health Canada issue. It was a federal intent to change it, not a provincial. It's Health Canada that has mandated that this way these medical marijuana grow-ups are going to be operated. So the taxation point I get from an I-4, but all I keep hearing is about the province, and it is a federal initiative, is it not?
Well, Your Worship, the taxation issue is a provincial issue.
Provincial, but the establishment, the no longer allowing private marijuana grow-ups is a federal.
That's correct. So it initiated from the federal government, but the actual land use comes from the local government and the province.
And altogether apart from provincial taxation, there are some pretty stringent rules that come with these type of operations that we have approved for Mon Road, including security. So I see no problem with that at all.
Now, just for clarity, Mr. Jackson, we're down to 14G, and we have passed the motion, but we've not yet gone into the bylaws?
The motion on the floor is to consider first reading.
Okay. So I think we beat this into the ground. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor McKay is opposed. Balanced council in favor. The motion passes. And the motion for the second.
Yes, Worship, that zoning amendment bylaw 2014 number 4500.059 passed second reading.
Seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor McKay opposed. Balanced council in favor. The motion passes. Going into unresolved building deficiencies, notice on title, section 5.7. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to the unresolved building deficiencies for the properties listed below. And, oh my goodness gracious, there's enough of them. There's 14 of them. Are they still all valid, or are we going to, there hasn't been any modifications up or down? The motion is that the council, by resolution, instruct the corporate officer to file a bylaw contravention notice respecting the properties listed below at Land, Title, and Survey Authority of British Columbia under Section 5.7 of the Community Charter. And so I'll go through this rather lengthy list here. And one at a time, we'll ask if there's anyone in attendance who would like to speak to matters related to any of these properties as listed. 2796 105th Street, construction of a secondary suite without a building permit. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to that matter? 2796 105th Street. The next property is 668 Abbey Lane, construction of a secondary suite without a building permit. Anyone in attendance like to speak to matters related to 668 Abbey Lane? The third item is 9 Acacia Street, construction of a secondary suite without a building permit. Anyone in attendance would like to speak to matters related to 9 Acacia Street? Number 4, 141 Acacia Street, construction of a secondary suite without a building permit. Anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 141 Acacia Avenue? Number 5 is 3049 Allenadale Place, construction of a secondary suite without a building permit. Anyone in attendance would like to speak to matters related to that property on Allenadale Place? The number 6 is 562 Albert Street, construction of a secondary suite without a building permit. Anyone like to speak to matters related to 562 Albert Street? And number 7, 510 Alderney Avenue, I guess it's close. Construction of a secondary suite without a building permit. Anyone like to speak to that property? And number 8, 3733 Apsley Avenue, construction of a secondary suite without a building permit. Anyone in attendance want to speak to Apsley's Avenue address? Number 9, 673 Chestnut Street, construction of a deck and stairs without a building permit. Anyone like to speak to matters related to 673 Chestnut Street? Number 10, 320 Fawn Place, construction of a deck and stairs without a building permit. Anyone like to speak to matters related to 320 Fawn Place? Number 11, 5206 Lost Lake Road, construction of a deck and stairs without a building permit. Anyone want to speak to that property at 5206 Lost Lake Road? The 30 Robart Street, incomplete construction, expired building permit, unfinished deck addition. Anyone want to speak to 30 Robart Street? Number 13 is 72 Strickland Street, incomplete construction, expired building permit. Anyone like to speak to matters related to 72 Strickland Street? And the final property is 96 View Street, incomplete construction, expired building permit, and work completed without a permit. Is there anyone in attendance like to speak to matters related to 96 View Street? Seeing none, if somebody would like to move the motion, the recommendation? Thank you. Seconded? Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into completion of Millstone River Greenway, purchase of 155 Westwood Road. Purpose is to inform council that 155 Westwood Road was acquired on December 17th, 2013, to complete the Millstone River Greenway. And there's a motion that follows. Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, I would like to move the staff recommendation that council receive for information the report regarding the purchase of 155 Westwood Road to complete the Millstone River Greenway.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Community service, number 9, Housing Legacy Reserve Fund allocation for 1597 Boundary Crescent, supportive housing works and service costs. Purpose to obtain approval to pay for off-site costs associated with the development of supportive housing at 1597 Boundary Crescent. Anyone would like to move the motion that's applicable? Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, purpose to outline possible terms of reference for a Mayor's Youth Advisory Council to review the goals of and rationale for establishing a Youth Advisory Council and to advise of budget implications associated with the establishment and ongoing support of a Youth Advisory Council. And I might just mention that we have received correspondence from the Central Vancouver Island Multicultural Society in support, and as well as the Nanaimo Aboriginal Centre also in support. This is, the motion is that the council establish the Nanaimo Mayor's Youth Advisory Council with an annual budget of $3,000 and direct staff to prepare a mandate and objectives for the Youth Advisory Council. Is there anyone who would like to move that? Councillor Anderson. Seconder? Moved and seconded? No discussion. Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had one question, and that's in regard to the advocacy role. It said that the Youth Advisory Council would be able to grow informed to provide policy and advocacy and so on. So I was just wondering, in the form that it is in right now, how this council would be able to provide policy to council. Would they just do that through a regular resolution?
Yes, Your Worship, it would be like most committees, they would pass motions which staff would bring forward to council in reports and the appropriate policy related to it.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I think this is going to be something very worthwhile, and I'm kind of looking forward to this. I think, it's an attempt on our part to try to involve more youth in civic affairs and certainly at the municipal level, and I'm really optimistic this is going to have some very good results. Traffic and Highways Regulation Bylaw Amendment, Bylaw 2014, number 5000.042. Purpose to obtain council approval of proposed amendments to the Schedules A and B of the Traffic and Highways Regulation Bylaw 1993, number 5000, related to off-street parking facilities and monthly parking rates for off-street facilities. And the motion is before you.
So moved, Your Worship, with staff. The recommendation, the council received the report pertaining to the Traffic and Highways Regulation 2014 5000.042.
Okay, is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And then there's the bylaw that passed first reading, second reading, and third reading. So we'll do them seriatim, I think, is required. So if somebody would like to, Bill, do you want to move the first motion?
The Traffic and Highways Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2014 5000.042 to replace Schedule A and B, pass first reading. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And two?
Traffic and Highways Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2014 5000.042, pass second reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion
And
carries.
the Traffic and Highways Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2014 5000.042, pass third reading.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Unauthorized suite in a single-family dwelling at 520 Wakeside Avenue. Purpose is to seek council authorization to enforce the provisions of the community charter. And at this point, it's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to the property at 520 Wakeside Avenue. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to that property at 520 Wakeside Avenue? And seeing none, there's the motion. If someone would like to move that.
Your Worship, I would move.
Moved and seconded?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And then item E, section 72 and 73 of 73 rather of the community charter, 2755 Departure Bay Road. Purpose to seek council authorization to enforce the provisions of the community charter. And at this point, we'd like to ask if anyone's in attendance tonight that would like to speak to matters related to the property at 2755 Departure Bay Road. And seeing none, if somebody would like to move the motions, and just for clarity for staff, can we move 1, 2, and 3 as a block? Good. So if somebody would move all three, would like to do that? You did move it? Okay, sorry, and second. Any discussion? Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. Is this 30-day or is this greater than 30 days?
It's 90 days.
We've been in contact with the owner, and we've advised him it's 90 days as it's a potential demolition.
And if I might just follow that up, this has been ongoing, and this is a property or a venue that our own inspector won't go inside?
That's correct.
Do we put ourselves in any peril if we expand this to 90 days from 30?
Certainly the hope is to have it done in a shorter period of time. We'll work with the property owner in that regard, but if we have to go through the route of providing all the necessary notification to the owner, it would take between 30 and 90 days, so that's why we recommended 90.
It seems like it's a rather easy fix.
In this day and age, the demolition costs are much higher than they have been in previous years for a couple of reasons. One, they now have to have a contractor deal with the need for remediation. In this case, there's quite a bit of mold in the building, so it could be a longer process to have the building removed, but I certainly agree with you. It should have been done previously, and that's why we're bringing it forward to council now.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and we're doing 1, 2, and 3. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Property maintenance bylaw 1990, number 3704. Purpose is to seek council authorization to enforce the property maintenance bylaw at the properties listed below, and it's requested that council or anyone wishing to speak with respect to the property maintenance for the properties listed below. And that, I'll just see if there's anyone in attendance tonight that would like to speak to matters related to 1062A St. George Crescent, household garbage and miscellaneous debris. Anyone in attendance that want to speak to that site? The next one is 2755 Departure Bay Road, discarded wood, garbage, and miscellaneous debris. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 2755 Departure Bay Road?
I have a question on that.
Yep.
So, Your Worship, if we give 2755 Departure Bay Road 90 days to demolish, why do we give them 14 days to clean up?
You're correct, Councillor Padgett, that this is unusual to see both of these coming at the same time. We very rarely ever bring a demolition forward. And in this case, we still are going to follow the standard 14 days, hoping the owner will clear that up and get rid of the debris. He may choose to do it all at the same time as the demo. And again, as per the previous answer I gave, is the hope he would do all of this within the next month.
So the 14 days that's quoted here is not written in stone then?
Well, certainly if he doesn't do it in the 14 days, then we will proceed ahead, but we would look at where he's at on the demolition and try and do the two together.
Thank you.
Okay, and overleaf, oh, just those two, okay. So there's nobody in attendance dealing with either of the properties? So if someone would like to move.
Staff's recommendation.
Staff recommendation. Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And
Your Worship?
Yeah.
My apologies. Could we go back to 2755 Departure Bay Road?
Yes.
We noticed an error in the agenda. The staff recommendation says 30 days. In the report, the staff recommendation says 90 days.
Right.
We just want to get some clarity from council that council would like to move the staff recommendations with 90 days.
That's my understanding, but
so it's 90 days, is that correct? Okay.
the intent was 90 days, and I think that's what we supported, but that's my understanding. Councillor Brennan.
Your Worship, the staff recommendation in the amended agenda, which I'm assuming is the one we're working from, has 90 days on it.
Green sheet has 30.
Oh, well, the
First, the agenda actually.
the PDF expert says, that's the program's called PDF expert, right? On mine, it says, number 2, the owner of the property is hereby required to demolish the building or bring it up to standard and leave the site clean and tidy within 90 days, and
Okay.
that's what I voted on.
96.
Just a sec for clarity then, could we get the motion read that it was passed with a date time on it?
Mine was 90.
Your green sheet says 30.
Yeah, but I'm.
So within the report and on the agenda, the only difference would be that it's, just to clarify, it is 90 days, but the remainder of the resolution stands.
Okay.
Again, it's 90 days.
Everybody comfortable? Yep. Alrighty, so we're going now into the bylaws, and the motion that financial plan amendment bylaw 2013 number 7162.02 to replace Schedule A to reflect changes that have occurred since May 2013 be adopted. If there's a mover and seconder for that?
So moved,
Staff recommendation, second? Okay, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And B, motion that highway closure and dedication removal, a portion of Reynolds Road adjacent to 3678 Reynolds Road, bylaw 2013 number 7181, pass third reading. Move. Second? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence, if we just get a motion to receive.
Receive the correspondence.
Okay, moving second. All those in favor? And any business arising? Sorry, that's, notice motion will be down to 13, but there's no business arising from the correspondence in item 11A? Oh,
Yes,
sorry, I
there
thought
is,
you were going to
Your
make a notice of motion under 13.
It's not a notice of motion.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
have a motion to make.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was a notice motion.
I just have to
Sure.
find the page on the agenda. There's a blank page on here. Okay, there it is. Okay. in response to the letter received from Mr. Jacklin and Mr. Halliday from the Port Theatre Society, I would move that we receive the letter and direct staff, upon approval of the cultural plan, provide support to the Port Theatre Society's community consultation process that will provide information to the public with respect to the proposed Performing Arts Centre addition, as well as seek public input and gauge community support for the addition's proposed design and function, and direct staff to provide a report to Council summarizing the results of the consultation process and recommendations for further action.
Okay. Are you going to second that?
If you let me do that, it would be my great pleasure to second this.
Yes,
and
speak
then
to it
I'd
as
like
well.
to speak on it
Please.
as well. Then, if Councillor Brennan should speak
Councillor
first.
Brennan, do you want to speak to it as well?
I'll speak to it. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think that we need to wait until the cultural plan is approved by Council. But once there is a cultural plan approved, then this motion directs staff to work and collaborate with the Port Theatre Society to inform the public and determine the level of support and the steps that need to be taken, and then provide a report to Council on the results of that consultation. And so I did send out this motion to Mayor and Council, and the only amendment that I've made tonight is just to make this direction to staff to be upon approval of the cultural plan.
Strategic plan.
Right.
Okay. Councillor Patchy, you want to speak?
Yes, very shortly. I remember in the first year of my first term in 2008 that the Port Theatre Society came to Council asking for assistance. In fact, we did give them a loan guarantee of $2 million, if I remember correctly, which was then withdrawn because the federal funding was not coming through. So things have obviously changed. This is 2014, but the principle is still really, really valid. So I'm looking forward to cooperation with the Port Theatre Society and see where we can go with this. So the information is really important for us to get a handle on, and sooner rather than later, as far as I'm concerned.
Great, and I'll be supporting it too. We have Councillor Beswick.
Thank you, Richard. We have yet to approve the cultural plan that is being provided to us sometime in the near future. And up to now, we have chosen to contribute in the neighborhood of $180,000 to the property on Victoria Street. And with the potential for there to be significant more expenditure in that building, which we're still not aware of what that may or may not be. When we speak to this motion, it says to me that as soon as we approve the cultural plan, which in some iteration we're going to, then that automatically triggers this motion to be in real time. I don't know what the implications are when that cultural plan comes to us to approve or not, in entirety or in part. And then, as I say, we're ultimately going to approve it, some parts of it or all of it. Then what that does is it triggers the correspondence that we direct allocations of resources from Heritage and Culture to advance the project through the consultation process. It says to me that we further request that Council designate the Nanaimo's official project for Canada's 150th centennial, So that would be our number one priority. So in some regard, it's saying to me that this is our number one priority, and we haven't approved the cultural plan yet, and we're going through our 2014 budget deliberations department by department, and here we're setting ourselves up, as far as I'm concerned, to adopt this as our number one project for 2014. And I don't, and unless I can be corrected, I would like to see a priority of opportunities with the limited resources and funds that we have available to us before we identify this as soon as we approve the cultural plan as our number one priority. We have many cultural priorities, of which, and other recreation priorities and other priorities that I think that we need to have them all on an agenda, on a page, before we identify one, not even knowing what our financial implications are, what that means. Because I'm afraid that that's what this does. And I know that we have Rotary Bowl, I know we have Caledonia Park, I know we have the Victoria Street Performing Arts Center, we have all kinds of issues with limited resources. Do I think that it's a wonderful notion? Yes. Do I want to, can I commit tonight that this is a number one priority without knowing what the implications are? No. So just on that basis, I can't support the motion.
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
Very much to what my Councillor Bestwick said. This to me is a notice of motion that when the cultural plan's done, let's get on with this one. So I would like to see the plan before I make a notion on this, although I thought that theater edition should have been done in the rehearsal hall a long, long time ago. But I'd like to see where the plan's at now. So I can't support the motion currently.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. As members of council and the people in our community are fully aware, the rehearsal hall or small performing space was part of the original concept, the original plan of the Port Theatre. And I think what we're saying tonight, and I'm fully in support of Councillor Brennan's motion, is that we're looking at it again. It's back in the fore, and we're going to take a very serious look at it and work with the Port Theatre Society to advance this project through community consultation. I don't think we're saying it has been identified as a number one priority, but that we do still consider it one of the many priorities for the community, and with the cultural plan coming forward, I think it's an opportune time to do this. So I'll be fully supporting the motion, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I'd just like to take a bit of time and clarify what the motion in fact says and what steps would flow from the motion. I know that it's a very wordy motion, and so I might have lost people as I'm, rolling it out. But what the motion does is it just asks us to wait until the cultural plan is approved with all of those things in it and all of those priorities in it. Wait till that's approved. Once that's done, then the Port Theatre will have a community consultation. The Port Theatre Society will have a consultation. And this motion asks the city to provide support to that, to provide information to the public with respect to the addition. And then it will also seek community input on it. And then it will gauge how much support there is. So it doesn't designate this as the number one priority, doesn't designate it as top three or anything. It says, this is something we've talked about for a long time. Let's inform the community what the plan is, and let's gauge the support. Let's figure out whether the community wants it. That this doesn't prohibit us from doing these same steps for any other project that we're interested in. If we wanted to gauge the support for the Caledonia Park, we might go about it this way. This is a method of going about informing the community what the project is from the Port Theatre Society's point of view, and whether they support it or not. And then we would have an idea of whether we would want to make it our #1 priority or not. But it certainly isn't making it our #1 priority, it's investigating that.
Okay, Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Well, that's exactly how I read Councillor Brennan's motion, and that's why I seconded it. It doesn't make it a #1 priority by any stretch of the imagination, in my opinion. I think all of us who sat on the previous council approved it at that point, so the principle, I don't think, has not changed to my mind at all. And you know, all it is asking us to do is to give support and start to find out what the community support is and how we shall go about the whole thing together with the Port Theatre Society. There's no commitment, as far as I'm concerned, to anything at this point. You know, I completely agree with Councillor Bestwick and Kip that it's imperative that the cultural strategy passes first, and that may even lead us to some other things. It may also make it easier to deal with this, you know, once that strategy is passed. There's all sorts of opportunities, but to now say to the Port Theatre Society, we're not interested in trying to find out what it is that we can or cannot do. The other part is, you know, we, in the new strategy that, the corporate strategy that the city manager produced a couple of months ago, we have a new culture and heritage department that is still in flux and is trying to get a handle on how that's going to operate. All sorts of unknowns at this point. But to me, this means a basic concurrence with the request of the Port Theatre Society, and I think it's a valid request. I think it is space that's required, particularly when you look at it in terms of what's happened at 25 Victoria Road. You know, it's connected, and so I don't think you can separate one from the other. So to me, it's important to show the support, and that's all they're asking for at this point, and they'll have my support.
And of course, the Port Theatre is a city-owned building as well. Councillor Graves.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be very brief. I think this is what this is asking for is similar to what we're doing in the Downtown Waterfront Committee, to a lesser degree. And this might turn into a little bit of a horse race between 25 Victoria Road and the theatre. So, so in conclusion, I think we can solve this during budget deliberations in some future time, but this is basically asking for information, and I support this motion.
Okay, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will also be supporting Councillor Brennan's motion. I think that it falls within what Council's been wanting to do throughout this term, especially when we went forward with the E-Town Hall on the budget. And I can't see a problem with trying to have this community consultation process, especially within our cultural plan, #1. In the vision, it says that we should ensure that arts and culture will be widely recognized as a significant contributor to the life and soul of our community. And I think by going forward with this, we will allow for that community consultation after the cultural plan has been adopted, and we can gain some knowledge from our community as to whether or not this is a priority. And I think, as Councillor Brennan has said earlier, this could be the exact same process that is followed for Caledonia Park, the Rotary Bowl, or other projects. So I'm fully behind it, and especially since it does follow adoption of the cultural plan.
Okay, Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Worship. Well, I disagree that this is the same as Caledonia Park. It's miles away from Caledonia Park as far as comparison. That's a city park.
May I clarify? I didn't say it's the same as Caledonia Park. I said this could be a process that is followed for Caledonia Park.
All right, then I will clarify by saying that I believe that the two projects are miles apart from each other relative to comparing them in any way, shape, or form. This is a local group who operate on behalf of us a building. This is their initiative. They want to add on to our building. So we've also got down at 25 Victoria Road, we've got that under deliberation right now. We've got the cultural plan under deliberation. These folks at the Port Theatre Society are requesting our support to build an addition to the existing theatre, and they want it to become our number one, Canada's 150th centennial project. I don't want to give them in any way, shape, or form, the hope that that's what we're approving. That they've got a long way to go to get a business case in front of us that what they're proposing even makes sense. And I'm fearful that we're going to go down this road and we're going to have the Port Theatre doing their thing. Next thing you know, 25 Victoria Road is going to take a life of its own. And both projects are going to end up getting approved. And we're probably going to be out $15 million for two facilities. I don't know how to marry the two of them together, how to say to the Port Theatre, no, we can't support yours until such time as 25 Victoria Road is dealt with. I don't really know. So unfortunately, I can't support this at this particular time, notwithstanding the fact I love the Port Theatre and I believe there's some merit in this plan.
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
Well, thank you. Just to reiterate some of the points that I heard, Councillor Paget talked about the chaos of the new department or the new culture department, and we're going to task them to look at another study that we've already done. I think the community has said a long time, well, we want this, we haven't found the money. To add to the visioning that's coming, we have 25 Victoria Road, we have the art gallery wanting to come too, we have a lot of cultural projects coming on. And the only thing I'm speaking against here is I just think it's, in my mind, premature. Let's wait and then move it on after we've read the document. Thank you. So call the question, please.
Well, we've got another speaker yet. So, Councillor Paget.
Thank you, Worship. Well, I just want to say that I believe that the problem that all of us have with 25 Victoria Road is connected to the kind of space that the Port Theatre Society would like to create. I think maybe it's time to one more time ask Mr. Halliday of the Society to come before Council and explain to us again how that would fit together and how a lot of that particular problem can be accommodated elsewhere. And, the motion doesn't ask for anything more than that. It just asks for your consideration. And if there's a statement made by him that you don't like, then you don't support it.
Okay, well, I think we've gone around,
we need to find out.
if there's any new information, Councillor Beswick, did you want to add, or is this?
Well, I just wanted to comment, Your Worship, that I know that the recommendation doesn't state that we're doing anything other than supporting the process and establishing what the community's input is. My experiences on council have been once we give council direction, we're on our way. And I don't want to give any false misrepresentations that we've given a direction here on somebody to come back to me 6 months from now and say, on January the 13th, 2014, we directed staff to proceed with the community consultation and awareness to support. And we invested time, resources, money to advance this project because I've been a part of that. And so until such time as somebody can give me, and it's always the devil is in the details, until somebody can tell me that, do I wish to see a rehearsal hall just like we did in 2008 or when the venue was built? Yes. If somebody can tell me it's less than $10 million now to do it, then I'd like to hear that before I send people off on time, energy, investment, resources. Where's the money going to come from? How much is it? Has it changed? It used to be 8. Is it now 10? Or is it 12? Because I don't know. I'd like to know that.
Okay. I think we we should just have a question on this thing. The one thing I just want to make a quick comment on is that I share the opinion that we're not really obligating this city or this council to a commitment of any major significance without discussing it. But I think it's such an important thing. The Port Theatre is important to all of us, that we need to at least take the time to sit down, listen to them, and get an idea from the proponents what they see. And Councillor Patchy alluded earlier to the fact that they did approach us once before, several years ago, and asked us for some kind of support, financial support, based on a large amount of funding they expected to get. It didn't come through, and the thing collapsed. We may be in the same position this time, but we sure need to ask them these questions and get some answers before we can really make any tough decisions. And as far as spending the money on it, I don't want to support spending any money too without knowing what the facts are. Hopefully that'll happen. Question on the motion. All those in favour? Opposed? We have Councillor McKay, Councillor Beswick, Councillor Kipp. Opposed? Balance of Councillor in favour. The motion passes. And now we move into council appointments. None. Into, what's that? Sorry. And then notice of motion, none there. And other business, I think, Councillor Anderson, did you have something?
Yeah.
Under item 14.
Yes, I just wanted to say I was encouraged by council moving the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council forward in such an expedient fashion. I think this is an initiative that will inspire participation amongst young people and give them the opportunity to start getting involved in the local government process, because currently I don't think there's very much of an opportunity for them to do so. We see currently that a lot of young people in our community are doing things in regards to homelessness and breaking world records to put Nanaimo on the map, and also on environmental issues. I just recently met with the District's Green Network, which has been doing things at Wellington and Woodlands regarding greening their facilities, and they're actually doing a sweater day in the school district, and they're actually going to be putting the temperature down in all school district facilities by, I think, 4 degrees or something like that, and encourage people to wear sweaters and also reduce the costs of electricity within the building. So I just wanted to say I'm encouraged by the movement that council's made, and hopefully we will see more young people getting involved in the local government process.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had mentioned earlier on the medical marijuana production that I would make a motion asking staff to produce some work for us. So I would move that staff be directed to draft a motion for the AVICC to begin discussions with the province about the property tax revenue implications resulting from their position that marijuana production is allowed on all agricultural zoned land.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Anderson may have been first. Discussion? See none? Okay, all those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor, thank you, Councillor Brennan. Councillor Patchy.
Just an observation and advice for council that last Saturday the Downtown Waterfront Initiative Committee gave its final public report in the Port Theatre, which was very well attended. I believe it is the intent that Dr. Whitty, the chair, comes before this council 2 weeks from today to officially inform council of the findings, the vision and the guiding principles.
Good. Okay. Great. Thank you. Much appreciated. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just briefly and very quickly, I'd like to publicly recognize the Tessa Van Ock for her wonderful representation of our city and our province yesterday, and she's off to the Nationals in the Scotties. So on behalf of council, I hope she represents, I know she'll represent us well. She's a wonderful player and a teammate to all of her fellow players, and we're very, very proud of her, as well as her young sisters who are off in Nova Scotia right now, representing our community at the Nationals already in the junior women's. So.
Very good. Thanks for bringing that forward.
You think they're already calling her a Victoria girl?
I know they've claimed her, but
Man,
she's out.
they grab that fast, eh?
Doesn't take long, does it? Okay, so we'll move into, now into item 15, question period. Agenda items only.
On the completion of the Millstone River Greenway purchase of 155 Westwood Road, I would assume that was consultation and direction of council in camera to start with, and because I don't imagine staff are out buying land without council's direction. Would it not be in council's favor to satisfy those who want release of in-camera minutes to say something that there's something coming out of in-camera here about purchasing some land?
Your Worship, the report, we believe, accomplishes that. It identifies what you dealt with in camera.
Yeah, that's what I assume we're releasing that information now.
And council is dealt with 14 issues of, I assume, added inventory or unknown inventory on property. I'm wondering how that information, even getting registered on title, gets to BC assessment for assessment and increased taxation. Because they work on a situation of inventory to value the improvements on the land, and if you don't inform them, like there was a period of time when you went from a paper trail to computer in your permits for construction, building permits for houses or whatever, and they weren't aware of you moving to computer, and there was quite a lapse of time of not picking up on permits and everything to assess land improvements. Here we've got a situation which I may suspect that you're aware of improvements, inventory on land that they may not be aware of. So council, in my opinion, needs a direction even to improve BC Assessment's knowledge of a paper trail, going back to a paper trail of any permits for improvements on land, as well as these here that may remain, because it's all part of the inventory, and it's not fair to have someone assess that doesn't have this, similar to this, if the BC assessment isn't aware of it. So because it makes a difference in the valuation of the land.
Good point.
And I think this city should go back to a monthly report or something of permits and this or whatever else that can generate extra income in the valuation of property to help BC assessment. Because the only time they find out in something like this is when, as you're aware, it's advertised with such things on, and they're sometimes having to sit and look at real estate ads, etc., to figure out if they've got the correct inventory on the land. But you can help.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Ron Boland, 3165 King Richard Drive. I'm curious, has council considered the merits of a vote registration on the wall so that it can be clearly seen who votes on each issue? As most larger towns, and we're getting to be a large town now, have facilities of a screen on the wall that shows each vote, and basically a councillor pushes a button, yay or nay. I've noticed lately that sometimes people don't raise their hand on either yay or nay. I've been told that that means yay, but I'm not sure whether that's the case or whether they are silently abstaining. I think it would make things clear. I just wondered if that has been considered by council. I don't think those things are all that expensive.
Sure.
The typical Robert's rules or rules of order say that if you don't raise your hand and you're in the room, you're voting in the affirmative. You could not abstain from a vote and be sitting at the table or in the room. So to abstain, you have to leave. Personally, it's my stink vote. If I don't really like it, but I'm in favor of it, I don't raise my hand.
I just think it would be terribly clear that way, and it might relieve some problems for the records keeper as well. One similar, has there been consideration, or why has there not been consideration of displaying graphic materials that go, particularly during discussions as we had tonight, that may have come in the agenda, and you have, but neither people at home nor I without my machine here have access to records of, for example, locations of housing. The graphics that came in associated with these various land issues and building issues. Could we not at least put up those that are contained in the agenda when that discussion is going on, if there is a debate of any kind? I found it almost impossible to follow several of these issues tonight, partly for that reason and partly because I believe the full documentation or graphic documentation wasn't available even to you. I am somewhat surprised in this day and age of computer graphics that the location of a new building or a deck when it comes into the city is not accompanied by a 3D graphic record integrated into the photo of how that looks. It's common practice now in architecture. Or that the city doesn't demand that from the architect when the plan comes in, that it is clear and it will be clear to the neighbors and everyone what the views are from there, or that once it's here, the city doesn't use 3D software to do the same thing.
Okay.
Is there a reason why
good suggestion? Yeah. Good, thank you.
Okay, the other one relates somewhat to Mr. Taylor's question. I'm inquisitive about the procedure we use in the cases of derelict commercial property. For example, tonight when I looked at 2755 Departure Bay Road, which is a property I pass all the time and I don't believe has probably been in use since I got here. When I looked at that property, I see it's assessed in improvements at $6,500, and that $6,500 is exempt. I don't know how many other properties we have here where exemptions are being granted in cases where it's neither in commercial use nor in active commercial transaction. And this, of course, from your records, would be very easy to find. You know, any place, any commercial operation, probably under $100,000 in assessment, probably is basically derelict. And the question is, should they be getting that exemption? How much are we missing in terms of exemptions? Remembering that whatever we exempt, somebody else has got to make up that difference, because exemptions don't make city expenses go down. They merely pass the burden on to somebody else. Is there any reason why I can think of the property we had recently here, on Halliburton? Then the church property over here that was derelict for a long time. And that, I think, got about $125,000 exemption. Is there some reason why we don't have a procedure to try and pick up on these things? And computer-wise, it's fairly simple to do most of that stuff. It would take a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no, it's valid, definitely. I'm hoping staff will be taking copious notes at this point, that mentally at least.
Okay, that's
Thank you.
all I've got.
No, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Good input.
Gord Fuller, 604 Nichols Street. I'm just curious as to why the property on Departure Bay was given 90 days to demolish, build, or bring up to standard the building, and yet the property on Halliburton and Farquhar on the corner there was given 30 days. Now, granted, they did come back and ask for another 30 days, but you know, in giving them that extra 30 days, will these guys be coming back and asking for another 90 days?
No, that's a fair question, but I think staff did deal with that. Ms. Jakey, do you want to have a shot at that?
Mayor Rattan, staff have been working with the owner of the property on Departure Bay and have worked through that. They're going to be working with us and getting that done. The other property on Halliburton, that has gone through a process that was extended beyond those 30 days and had taken, we'd been working on that prior to even that getting to council. So on this one, we're working with the owner and are going to be able to resolve it.
I think there's a little bit of flexibility shown where people are trying to be responsive and deal with the issue. If they just walk away and throw their hands up, then we just impose a 30-day thing. But I think we do extend it or try to, where it looks like it worked both ways.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry to come back, but I believe the $10,000 exemption was created by the province, no different than the homeowner grant to the residential. If you want to take the 10,000 grant away from commercial, maybe the homeowner grant away from the residential people as well.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. I don't know that we can, to be honest.
Well, that's you can't do anything with the 10,000 either, sir.
Well, that's what staff.
But what your actions are tonight displays.
Well, we weren't planning to. You brought it forward.
It displays what the assessment is, that it's a problem. Tear it down so you can get something that will generate more than 10,000 to give you some money.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Robert Fuller, 3350 Hammond Bay Road. First, a compliment to council and staff. The Mayor's Youth Advisory Council is probably one of the best ideas to come down the pipelines to get youth involved in civics and politics, especially when their adult counterparts have become particularly jaded with anything political. My question has to do with the same subject. Maybe I'm just confused by the wording in the staff recommendation, which states that council establish a Nanaimo Mayor's Youth Advisory Council with an annual budget of $3,000 and direct staff to prepare a mandate and objectives for the Youth Advisory Council. Would it not be better to form and then allow this body to work with staff and council to form their own mandate and objectives? After all, is it not their input being asked for? Thank you.
Yep. Okay, that's valid. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.